And okay, so we are good with this class and object concept. You can create now your own classes and objects, right? So let's move on to now like the most important concepts in Java, because like why I am focusing on more on this OOPS concept is because this is very important and you should know about these things. Then you can go to advanced level and where you can write your own codes, and it would be help for you. So let's now I define these things, right? uh, Length, breadth, and height. What are these? These are variables, right? So variables is basically a name, a user defined name which can declare to store some value. So I declare length which stores value 1. I declare this which stores 2. I declare h which stores 10. So these are the names which can declare to store some values. Okay. So Java has a specific format to define a variable, and it's always good practice to define a variable in lowercase. Okay. And I forget, so you should define your class like in camel case if you have a big class, and then starting with your capital letters followed by your lower letters. Like I defined box, you should not have class like, because it's not good practice in Java. So you cannot have class like something like this box. Okay. You can have, but it's not good practice. So it's always better to follow the standards. So variables you should define in lowercase. Method you should define in lowercase. With if you have like big name, you can use camel case, and then classes starts with capital letter and then followed by lower letters. Okay. And then we were on variables. So variable, I told you what is that. What is variable? It's a predefined, it's a user defined name which stores some values. Okay. And we have 4 types of variable in Java. Okay, those are instance variable, static variable, local variable, and parameter variables. So which are like, okay, let's start with instance variable. So instance variable is a variable that belongs to an object. Okay. And a variable, let me show you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah,
I just wanted to ask you, like, are you recording this?
yeah, I'm recording this. Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
So where we were, okay, so instance variable is a variable which you define within the class but outside a method. Okay, so let's suppose I defined int a. So where I defined this? I defined this inside a class, but this is my method, right? I defined int a outside of my method, which is an instance variable. Okay, this is an example of instance variable. Okay. So what is the syntax of defining the instance variable? You can have a data type, and then you can have any name, and then followed by your value. Okay. For instance variable and static variables, it's not mandatory to initialize something, initialize a variable. Okay. But for local variables, you should initialize a local variable, else it will give you the compilation error. So I have int a, which is my instance variable, which is defined in a class but outside a method. And then second is static variable. Static variable is a variable which belongs to a class. Okay. Which means if there are multiple, like if I create 10 objects, and if I have 10 objects of a class, then the variable b will remain same for 10 variables. So it shares the same copy to different objects. Okay. So static variable is we defined in the class with the keyword static. Okay, so we define static variable with static keyword. So this is the interview question actually. So people ask what is static variable and where do you use this static variable. Okay, so static variable is a variable which shares the same copy across different objects. Okay, so real case example is, let's suppose I am a student, right? And I have, let me go to this class where I have, okay, so I have student, let's suppose in a college there are like 1,000 students and we are maintaining a database of a student, and then we have what we can have a student address, student name, and then I can create a college name, right? What is common in what is a common property in for all the students in the in out of these three?
College name.
Yeah, college name, exactly. So why we are defining, the question is why we are defining every time, you know, when you define a variable in Java, it takes memory, right? It goes to a stack memory, right? So whenever you define a variable, whenever you define an object, it takes memory. We like JDK assign some memory to those variables based upon their data type, right? So they will allocate, JDK allocate some portion of memory, and then because string is object in Java, so whenever you create an object, JDK allocates some memory in RAM. Okay, so in writing something in RAM is not suggestible, right? You should avoid as much as you can. So if a college name is common, I don't want this college name to repeat for 1,000 students. Okay, in college, if I have 1,000 students and I creates like objects, 1,000 objects, and those, and then like for 1,000 variables, I don't want my college name to be, you know, I don't want to specify the college name because this is static for all the students, right? So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and define it as static, and then what is the college name? Something ABC. Okay, which makes my variable static and which saves lot of memory, because 1,000 students we are not defining college name every time. So you got the concept? Any question on this? Because this is an interview question people can ask you. Real time scenario of static.
So once you assign the value to this static variable, can you modify the value later?
Static variable you
Can
can
you
modify.
redefine the value?
That is like final variable you cannot change. This is not constant. But why we defined is, you understand, right? So the main purpose of this is like it should be, it will get shared across multiple objects. Let, like I quote an example of 1,000 students in a college, right? So 1,000 objects, it shares the same copy instead of creating a different separate copy. Okay, so my structure would be something like, let's suppose I'll give you the structure. Let's suppose student 1, I have name. Okay, I have address. Similarly, I have student 2. Okay, and similarly I have name and address. And I can, it's like n, there might be n number of students, right? But the most, see now you see that we are creating a name for everything, but so but the main, the most, like we define college name as a static, so it would be shared between, college name would be common, will college name equal to something something, it would be common for 1,000 students and number of students. So we are saving a memory here. So it's always better to define your variable as static if you have something common. Like you are an employee, right? You work for an IT company and the company name is common. and you want to maintain a database of your employees. You cannot have, you know already that your company name is common for all the employees, like lakhs of employees. So you can have a static variable in that case, which will help you to save memory. So this is the use case, and this is a real-time scenario where we can use static variable. Any questions? Any question, guys?
No.
Uh,
How do you call the static variable?
Sorry?
How do you call the static variable?
Call the static variable. You just use it as
Yeah.
dot
In the
separator. So there is there.
okay, you use the dot
Yeah,
dot operator.
yeah. There is a static method also in Java, and you call it by using class name dot method name. So the static method you cannot create, you won't able to create an object for static methods. So static variable I showed you, and static method I will explain you later. Okay, so just remember this is very important, and people ask this question because this is related to memory, right? Memory management, so which is very important when your application grows. So memory management is very important when your application
So
grows, right? Yeah, go ahead.
I understand that the static variable is shared among the objects,
Yeah.
but my confusion is during some situations,
Uh-huh.
can we change the name, for example, from college name equals to ABC to college name equals to XYZ
Yeah.
later on once it's
You can
modified?
you can change it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are like the variables which you cannot change are final. So those become constant. So there is a keyword called final in Java also. Okay.
Okay.
Final means it becomes a constant. Constant means you cannot change a value. Okay. So
So once you declare final, is it static to mm, all the what is college name is static all through the program?
sorry, not getting you. Can you come again?
So what is the difference between static and final?
Yeah. So static is okay. Static I explained you, right, which is shared across different objects, different objects, right? So you are aware, you have good understanding on static now, and what is a real time scenario, right? So
Yes.
yeah, right. So final is when you don't want your variable to get modified. Okay. So let's suppose and final is not, first of all, final is not shared. It's kind of a normal variable. It will take your memory. It will be shared. It won't be shared across the different objects, right? So whenever you define, let's suppose I define a final here in this case. Okay. So you will not be able to change the value of college name at any point of time. It will give you the compilation error. You want me to show an example? And main
Yes.
difference is
Yes.
second main difference is second main difference is it won't be shared across different objects. It won't share the same copy as static do. So memory management in this case is not that efficient as compared to static. Okay. So let me take an example of int. Let's suppose a equal to 10. I defined int a equal to 10. Then I define some void. Then I'll say some change final. Okay, just for your reference. And then I have main. So you just type main and then control space. It will come as your. It will give you the entire public static void main method. Okay, now you try to 20. So I tried to change this value, right? So what it says, cannot. Okay. The final field is cannot be assigned. So you cannot change the value of final field. Okay. So final means constant. So constant cannot be, just remember this is the final. When you define any variable as a final, it becomes a constant and you cannot change it in any method. Okay, any confusion still?
So
So
final, okay, go ahead, no problem.
Got it? So you can have variable as final static also. And also one more thing I want to, so like,
So you can call it anywhere throughout the program, right?
right, you can call it. No, if you have a static variable, right, you
Mm-hmm.
can use
Yes.
only in a static method. If let's suppose I will use in system out. Okay, 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 so in static, right? So if you define your variable as a static, if you don't define your variable as a static, okay, let's suppose int a, this is not my static variable, right? So I am going to use that sys out and then do your control shift, and as I just use a, what it says, cannot make a static reference to the non-static field a. Okay, so if you are using any variable, class variable, instance variable in your static method, it won't allow, Java won't allow that. So you understand? So they're like you cannot use normal variable, instance variable in a static method. So this is the first rule. This is again an interview question, because like people gives you this kind of a template, right, and they will ask you to find a compilation error. Then you will be able to say that, okay, we define int a as an instance variable, and then we use that variable in a static method, which is not allowed in Java. It gives a compilation error. Okay, if you run it, it will give an error saying that cannot make a static reference to a non-static field A. Okay, but again, if you change this instance variable to a static variable, error will go. So thumb rule is you cannot use instance variable in a static method. So got it? It answers your question that will it be accessible in all the methods and all other stuff in class, right? It's not.
Yes, yes, I got it.
You got it right. Okay, so this is very important, and people will give you this template, kind of template, and tell you find the bug, right? Find a bug, find the compilation error, and you should be able to tell. And this is the
Okay.
compilation error in this.
Mm-hmm.
So this is again an interview question. Okay, and this is about variable, and then okay. So you understand types of variables? Any confusion on types of variable? I told you, and this is again, remember this, whenever you define a local variable is a variable which is defined within a method. Okay, so this is my method, public static void main is my method, and I defined int x equal to 10, which is my local variable. Okay, so let's suppose I want initialize it. See, I will be getting an error saying that x may not have been initialized. Okay, so the important thing is to remember is you should initialize a local variable.
So basically, like if it is if you initialize it outside the method, it can be used throughout the program.
Which one?
If int(x) is initialized outside the main method, like can it be used inside static void
No,
main
no, no,
method?
it cannot be. It becomes an instance variable then, right? You define outside a method within a class. So you should remember that what is instance variable. If you try to use it x, what it says, again, change modify, it's giving a suggestion saying that change variable x to static. Okay. So you should remember this, what is instance variable? A variable which is defined within the class but outside the method. Okay. And what is static variable? A static variable is same as instance variable but with the keyword prefixed with static. So what is the difference between this and this? Only keyword static, right? So this variable you can use within a static, within all the methods in a class, this variable, but this you cannot use within a static method. Okay. Still confusion?
So when you have that, sorry, when you have that static variable inside the class and you make an object, let's say for example in the student class in the previous example,
Mm-hmm.
you create so many objects of that student class.
Uh-huh.
So each time you create that object for the student class,
Mm.
that static variable college name will be created each time, or there will be only one instance of that
That,
variable?
that is a variable. There would be only one instance which saves your memory. So, so that is the purpose of having a static in Java.
So no matter how many objects you create out of that
Exactly right.
student class,
Exactly.
there will be only one instance. Okay.
There would be only one college name. So you are not creating, let's suppose you create 500 objects of a student class, right? And 500 objects takes a lot of memory, right? And then you have, again with that college name, you have instance of that, right? So that will again increase your memory. So we use static in that case, and it is shared across all the objects. So that is the definition of static variable. So which is being shared across multiple objects. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything else in this instance variable, static variable? Because this is very important actually. This is a basic of computer programming, and it can be asked in many questions. Because like nowadays, like some online test, and if you have some online tests, right? So they'll give you this template and ask you what are the debugging, where is that compilation error, why this has been done. So this is very important, and for doing the programming also this is very important. So I want you to understand this instance variable, static variable, and local variable concept. If you have anything, any question, please do let me know so that I can explain you right away.
There was another type of variable also, parameters.
Yeah, parameters. That is not that important, but I'll like we use normally, you will be able to understand it fast. But these three are very important. So if you have any question on this, you can ask me, else we can go to parameter variable. Any question? So I'll explain again. Instance variable is a variable which is defined within a class but outside a method. Okay, and this cannot be used in a static method. So you can have a note on this. Instance variable you cannot use in a static method. And then static variable, which is defined as a static. I told you what is static variable, right? Which is shared across multiple objects already. And then local variable, which is defined within a class, within a method. Okay, which is a local. Why it is local? Because its scope is within this method. Let's suppose I will use this method. I'll try to use this method. What will happen? Let's see now. Okay, print ln, and I'm going to use a. So what it says, a variable so its scope is not global, which is just within this block. If you define any local variable, the scope of this of local variable is within the class only. Okay, so you cannot use outside the class anywhere, or any you cannot use in other methods also. Fine, makes sense.
How about that static block you told yesterday? Can you
Yeah,
use it in the static block?
which one? So let's see. Now this, anyways, this local variable we cannot use. This local variable, I told you this local variable
No,
scope.
not the local.
Which one?
Not the local.
Instance
The
variable.
static in the.
Static we should be able to use.
Okay.
Let's see instance variable. I'll show you what is the error, because I want you to see the error also. X. Okay, again the same thing. Cannot make a static reference to a non-static field. So if you define an instance variable, you cannot use in static method or static block, anything which is static. Okay, so you just remember this. You can very well use this. Okay, cleared?
Yes, got it. Yes, thank you.
Cool. So this is the variables concept. You know how to define, and then main important thing is data type. Again, the another part is data type, right? So Java has many data types. I have here like, so we have byte, we have short, we have int, we have long, float, double, char, boolean. So what is the difference between byte and short? Because these two contains number, right? But the only difference is the memory they take. So it is like byte is 1 byte, short is 2 byte, int is 4 byte. So you can just go through these data types. Okay. So only difference between these are like it stores, these four are they stores a number, but the only size is different. If you have like credit, you want to store a large number, right? You should go with long because it has like 8 bytes of memory. So these kind of examples. So these are data types in Java, basic data types in Java. Okay. Shall we move on? And then I explained you what is static variable, local variable. Okay, variable, parameter variables. So
When do we use normally like float and double in real case scenarios?
yeah, you can use like, so let's suppose you have a float and double. Okay, so you have some floating number. Let's suppose 1 dot. I want to buy some product which is like 1.5 kg, right? So I can just define it as double. So you use product weight, customer buy a product which is like 1.5 kg. Okay, so you can define like this, but it should be a double. Okay. Anything which
And
you can code for float or double. Float and double are same. Only difference is again memory, 4 byte and 8 byte. And char is char boolean. We use boolean have only true and false value. If you want to go to if and else condition, right? Based upon some condition you want to decide your code flow, you can use boolean there. And character is
so
just uh-huh.
normally in applications, you have to use currencies or amount. Do you go with float or do you go with double?
See, it again based upon your requirement, because like if you are, we preferred float. We because it's like we don't store much more values actually, right? So always, as I told you, right, we should code like, we should code a program like to support a high availability. And if your application grows, we should be able to support. So the most important thing is you should take care of memory, right? If I define double and I am storing just 1 byte, I am wasting 7 byte here, right? Understood? Because when you define a variable, it allocates a stack memory in RAM, which is of 8 bytes. It doesn't care, JVM doesn't care whether you stored 8 bytes or just 1 byte. So if you store 1 byte, I'm wasting my 7 bytes here. Okay. And I told you yesterday that Java is not purely object oriented, right?
Mhm.
Right. So now the reason is because of these data types. Because in Java everything we do is an object, right? So we define an object of a class. We use dot operator, which is object orientation. So dot operator is nothing but object orientation. Okay, we use everywhere dot operator. We call an object, we assign a variable, we do everything. So but because of these are not objects. These are just variables, data types. Because of this, because Java main focus is to have objects. So everything in Java should be object, right? But in Java we have like data types which are not objects. So which causes that, which helps us to say that okay, Java is not purely object oriented language. It's 99.9%, but still it's not purely 100%. Okay, because of this reason.
Can you come again?
Okay, so I'm saying Java is an object-oriented language. Why we are saying object-oriented language? Because in Java everything is object, right? So you define a template. I define a student, right? So I define 100 objects of a student. So object has everything what this class has, right? So we are defining object, and Java says that okay, these are the objects. So everything in Java is an object basically. If you look, right, you define a template and you just store those template in your object and then access using dot operator, right? This is the three step flow. You create an object, you create a class, you create objects of a class, and then you can access using object, right? So it means everything in Java is an object. But as I showed you, right, these are not objects in Java: byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean. Okay, so because of these data types, primitive data types, we say Java is not purely 100% object oriented language,
Okay, got it.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like it's violating the rule of having objects in Java because it's like a data type. But again, if we want, if like Java has wrapper classes of these: int, long, float, which is integer, long, double. So those are objects. So but we, like in our common programming language, we use these data types. So we say that object, that is the reason we say, I told you yesterday that Java is not purely object oriented language. Okay, this is just a concept, no one is going to ask you, but still you should know. Okay guys, all good. So where were we? Okay, let's use parameter variable. Parameter variable is variable which we use, which we pass within the method. Actually, let's suppose I have a method public void area, some volume, and in this method I passed a length, breadth and height, breadth and int height. Instead of declaring, I am passing it from caller is going to pass this. Okay, so what I'll do here is I create an object of class obj equal to new operator, and then obj dot volume, and then it expects you to pass three values, 1 and then 10. So the variables which you pass from caller, so we are calling this object, and this method, volume method, and volume method is expecting three variables, right, in this. So I pass three variables, 10, 1, 10, and then I am calculating length into breadth into height. You run as, it will give you an output of 100. So these are nothing, the variables which are passed within the methods are called parameter variables. Okay, got it? Anything, any question? Guys, you are on?
Parameter variable can be declared on a class or in a method.
Where?
It have to be declared within the class, outside the method.
Which variables actually? These parameter variables?
Uh, uh, yeah.
No, these are to be like passed. See, these I defined within the signature of volume, right? So in the volume I passed, in this method I passed LBH. In this itself I defined. So that's why it's called parameters. Anything, if you pass anything to your methods, those becomes parameters to the method. Okay? So you
So
define
it have to,
along with your method.
so it have to be declared within the class. Is that right?
Right, within the class, and if you don't declare it, it will give you an error because you are passing 10, right? Compiler don't know what type of 10 is. So you have to tell compiler that it is int. So it is
Okay.
defined within the parameter of your method. So this is my method. If you write a method, right? Till now we used to write this kind of method, right? And then if you define parameters in this method, it becomes parameter methods, parameter variables. And this is very important because like callers used to pass variable and then you can calculate this. You are clear? You want me to explain more?
Yes, it's fine. I just want to know can be declared inside the method or in a class?
These parameters. Actually, this is along with the.
Yes.
It's not defined within the class. It's based. It's with the method actually. If you see this method volume, this is my method. Okay. And what I did is I just passed these variables and which is defined with the variable with the class. So these are not kind of static instance variables. These are along with your method. Right? Like instance, like local variable. If you define here some variable, int local equal to 10, it becomes a local variable. This is a local variable because you defined within a method. So I told you local
Okay.
variable
All
is
right.
variable which is defined within the method. Okay. Okay.
All right.
Got it?
So I have a doubt, like is it better to use a static or instance or declaring the variables in a method? Which is better?
See, I gave you the scenario, right? In that scenario, if you have something common and you have multiple objects, you are sure that this variable is going to be a common. If I create 1,000 objects, million objects, billion objects, then you should go with a static. Okay. But if you are not sure if your variable, if the variables are changing, then you should use the normal variable. And
Okay, got it.
And other thing, like I got your question again. You are saying that what is preferable, right? Local variable and
Yes,
instance variable, right? So
yes.
yeah, so the basic difference between these two is again the scope. If you define x, right, I can use in this one method, I can use in some other method. So its scope is, I can say global, x scope.
Okay,
So if I define x here, right, I can use in this method also. But if I define local, which is my local variable, I cannot use it in anywhere. So let's suppose in this method, it will give an error. Okay,
okay.
got it?
Yeah,
So,
got it.
that's the basic difference actually. And you should know when to use, where to use. And now I am going to tell you the most important concept, which is like very important, memory management, and which is being asked commonly actually to the fresher, experienced people, anyone, because you people should have understanding of heap memory and stack memory. Okay, so anything we define in this is going to somewhere and it is going to a memory, right, which is a RAM. Okay, so what JVM do is whenever you create a variable, okay, it goes to a stack memory. Whenever you create any variable, it assigns, it allocates that bytes of memory. Let's suppose int, how much int takes, int takes 4 bytes, right? So what JVM will do, it allocates 4 byte and store the value 20 in that variable. Okay, so whenever you create in short, in nutshell, all the variables which are being created goes to a stack memory. So there are two types of memory actually, stack memory and heap memory. Okay, so all the variables goes to a stack memory. Got it? And then,
Okay.
okay,
When is the heap memory used?
sorry.
When is the heap memory used?
Yeah, yeah, I'm going to explain that now. So whenever you create an object, right, you created an object, right, so using new operator. Okay, so when the object creation, object goes to a heap memory. So in nutshell, you should just remember this. Stack, whenever we declare a variable, it goes to a stack memory. Object and heap memory contains object, as simple as that. Okay. Any question on this stack and heap memory? Because I'm going to tell you again garbage collection.
Yeah, we are fine.
Fine. So stack contains variables and references. Heap memory contains objects. Okay. So now what will happen? Because again, it's like a 8. You have a machine of 8 GB, and we are writing 100 or 1,000 of products, right? This program. Right. So every objects and every variables can have some, like, occupy some memory, right? So it's we are accumulating the memory. Now what JDK internally do is it uses garbage collection. Garbage collection is nothing but unreferenced object, which is like unallocating the memory, right? You allocate some memory to this variable. What JVM do is it after some time, once you once your execution and usage of these variables and objects are completed, it are these objects and variable will be eligible for garbage collection. Okay. So internally JTK garbage collect all these variables and objects and free the memory. Okay. When this memory, when this object is like available for garbage collection, when you execute, when I execute this program and I am no longer using this object, right? When you execute this program, run as Java program. Okay, I'm done. My output has came. I am no longer using this object, right? So JVM internally decides that this object is no longer is being used. Now it's available for garbage collection, and let's clean this object, and they will free the memory. What is being occupied? This OBJ. Okay. Very important concept. You should know when garbage collection comes into picture in Java. What is stack memory? What is heap memory?
So once the execution is done, the garbage collector clears off everything, right?
Exactly. So whenever the execution and there is like variables are not used, right? So
Yeah.
I ran this application. I'm no longer using these things, right? So it's available for garbage collection, and garbage collection is nothing but, you just remember this. It just free the memory, right? It unreference the objects, which means it is cleaning the memory. So which is being occupied by the objects in our program or variables in our program. Okay.
Okay.
So very simple concept, but it's very powerful concept because it's related to memory management. It's being asked in interviews also. That's why. So stack memory contains variable, heap memory contains objects. Your garbage collection is nothing but you're cleaning the memory after execution completes, after the objects or variables are no longer used. When who did this? Who do this garbage collection, right? So you should tell that JDK internally do the garbage collection. Okay.
So is it like default?
Yeah, it's a default. When you install JDK, JDK has internally functionality of doing the garbage collection. But if someone will ask you, can you do the garbage collection externally? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we can do that by, like, I creating an object, right? So if I define object equal to null, which means I am nullifying this object. Okay. So it means I am, whatever the space occupied to an object, I am freeing that space and just saying that this object contains nothing. It contains null. So this is the way we can externally do the garbage collection, but we should avoid these things because JDK has a great mechanism of doing this. We should not do this, but you should know we can do that. It's not like we cannot. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Any questions on this heap memory, stack memory? Your
So local variables inside the methods.
mm-hmm.
When are those variables garbage collected?
Okay. Whenever
As soon as that function call is finished,
completed, yeah, exactly. So
or
whenever your execution is completed, it's available for garbage collection. Because see, now if you see local, right, this is my local variable. where I am using it. I'm using in this, just in this. I'm not using anywhere, right? In this method, I declare this method and I'm not using it. So whenever an execution comes out of this function, this local variable will be available for garbage collection. As simple as that.
So let's say inside that main method, there is that object.volume where that volume method is being called.
Okay.
Let's say we have like 2 rows of calling that same method.
Two.
I mean, let's say we are calling that volume twice, the same thing being done twice.
You mean, shall I copy this?
Copy that and
Uh-huh.
put it in the second.
Okay.
So in this case, the first time it called that volume method, it creates that local variable, does that output, then it goes to garbage collection, and then the second time again it creates that local variable and again
Exactly.
does that
Yeah.
garbage collection.
Yes. This is how it works.
But whatever is created in that inside that main will be garbage collected at the end of
And of the entire program.
completion of the
All.
method.
Yes.
Okay.
Program. Yes. So this is
So
very.
I also have a question.
Yeah. Sure.
So you told me that you can do the garbage collection externally also. So once you declare, once object.volume is used and I then nullify the object and
Huh.
again I use another operation called object.volume. So how is it going to manage?
So let's suppose I did this, right? So it's like it's not affected because we are again calling this, and then at the end, see my operation. You want to perform operation after this, right?
No, actually, yes, exactly.
This is the way you want me to do. Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
It okay. Sorry, I missed the colon here. It won't allow, I guess, but let's see. Okay, see, it gives a null pointer exception, which means my object is no longer exist in memory.
You called it already. You called it again, right? Object
But the
volume.
flow, if you see the flow, right? What is the flow? First execution will be this call, right?
Okay.
The second execution would be what call? This call. Okay.
Okay.
Third time it will come and it will assign a variable object equal to null, which means my object is no longer exist, right? I told you that
Yeah.
you remove the object from your heap memory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now what happened? Which says object dot volume, which is object is what? Null, right?
Oh yeah, got it.
Got it? So which
Yeah.
means you don't have anything now. Now if you do,
Okay.
you create one more object here. If you want to see this, let's create one more object here. You say this is object one, or maybe you can create simply, no need. You can recreate the object create object. Okay, like this you can do, and now if you see, you will be able to get it. Which means we can externally garbage collect by using null operator. Null, just assigning the object to a null. This is a live example I showed
So
you.
again, you have to declare a new variable again, right?
Yeah,
After that.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So got it?
So why are we not using that class name after that?
In this, because if you class,
Yes.
yeah, okay. So the reason is we already declared class name and we are using this object, right? And if you define class name, which means you are creating a new object altogether. Okay. So I'm using the one object which is obj. Let's suppose I define class name here. It will give an error saying that object variable already exists, which means if you define variable in class name object new class name, which means you are creating a new object altogether. Okay. So let's suppose I define object one. It will not give any problem, but if I use the object which is already being used, it gives a problem saying that variable already exists, duplicate variable. So if you remove this, what will happen? I can use the same variable, but in the same variable I am just creating a object. I'm not defining the type of this variable. I just define a variable and assigning the variable with the value, with the new operation. Okay. So it's like reusing your variable. When you reuse your variable, you no need to define its data type. So in Java, class is also a kind of data type, right? So you should not define any data type when you want to reuse any variables or any object. That's why I didn't define variable demo class prefix with object. Got it?
So when you say that object equals to null, is it actually deleting that object or it's just setting
Yeah, it's like
null value to that?
it's lit because setting a null value is it will not solve our problem. It will still remain in a memory, right? So deleting an object is what is our end goal. Deleting object means it frees the memory. So we are talking about a memory, right? So I don't care whether it contains null or it contains some result 10 1 10, right? So if it just set the value to null, it doesn't make sense to have this statement here, right? It is deleting the value and it is cleaning the objects from a memory.
So what I meant was the object variable is still there, right? So is it really garbage collected, that statement?
Which one?
Object equals to null, is it object equals to null when we write that? You
Uh-huh.
said that's a way of garbage collecting
Right.
externally,
Yeah,
manually.
yeah.
But
When you
but that object is still there. So is it really a garbage collection?
yeah, it's like, see, I told you there are like stack memory and heap memory, right? So when you create an object, it goes to a heap memory and reference would be in stack memory. Okay, reference, you mean reference? Hello. Yeah. So I told you when you create an object, right? So it goes to a heap memory, but the reference of this will remain in a stack memory. So object equal to null deletes the like cleans the memory from a heap memory, but the object reference like variable is still in your stack. Okay. So you should remember that this is, we are saying obj. What is obj now? It's nothing but a variable, right? Right. So I said a variable stores in your stack memory, but objects creation goes to your heap memory, right? So object is just a variable, right? It's kind of this x, we define just an object, it's just a name which stores this value. So reference is still in stack memory, and your entire object, you understand what is object, right? Now object is all these things. I have object which contains all these things now, volume, x, int, b, everything, which goes to a heap memory. So heap memory is getting deleted by using this statement.
So when it does the garbage collection internally, at that time also the variable will still be available in the
Yes,
stack,
yes.
or it will clear out the stack as well.
The variable, if you are not using it, it will clear the stack also
Okay.
at the end of the execution of your program. Okay, so fine. Shall we move on with this? Any other question?
Yes.
No.
No. Okay. So where we were? Okay, this parameter variable is clear for you.
Do you think this video is going to be available for us to watch later?
Can you come again? Your voice is breaking.
Can we watch this video later?
Video.
The session. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it accessible later on?
yeah. We'll sharing this thing with you.
Okay.
So we'll be intimating the
All right.
same to you. So you guys can have access to that folder where we'll share this PPTs also, and then we'll share the record also.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. And I define fields also. Now the another important concept while defining the class is access modifier. Okay, so what does access modifier do? It allows you to access your members or methods outside the class, inside the class, outside the package. Okay, so it's like a it's controlling the access of your variables actually, basically. Okay, so in Java we have four types of access modifiers. Private, if you define private keyword, let's define here. Okay, if you define private in front of variable, it becomes a private variable. If you define protected, it becomes a protected variable. If you don't define anything, it's like it's default. And then we have one which is called public. Okay, so these,
So public and default are the same, right?
no, there is a there is a huge difference in between these two. So public is something which is being public, which is being used by all, which we like it's access, everyone can access this public variable. And in Java we should avoid using this public variable, because if you are exposing your application to someone and they have access to this public variable, they can harm your data, right? They would be they will send some information which is not handled by you. So we should avoid this because it's like it's not preferable in Java. Okay, we should avoid using public because public is like it's accessible to all the people, all the classes, everywhere within your program. Okay, so I will give you these things we can explain you better in inheritance actually, where we can have subclasses, and then I'll be able to tell you why we are using private, why we are using protected, and where uh, like when we have the subclasses actually concept. So this we can explain in that in inheritance tutorial. Okay, so just don't worry, we'll explain it in that inheritance because we need subclass in that. But I don't want to explain subclasses here because you don't know inheritance concept, right? So you won't be able to understand these concepts now. So what else? And then one, the another important thing is, just remember, we'll explain these access modifiers in inheritance. But you should remember we have four types of variable, four type of access modifiers: protected, private, and then default. If you don't define anything, which becomes default, and then public. Okay, okay. Now let's go to a constructor. What is constructor? A constructor is a special method which is called whenever you create an object. When you write a statement new, which means a constructor is being called. Okay, so let me do this. So I have a class which is just a constructor demo, and it has three variables: length, breadth, height. And these are instance variable because I defined these within a class outside a method, and then in method I am calculating length, breadth, height. Okay, and from object I created an object and I called a method volume. What can you tell me what would be the output of this program? Any one of you? See, we just created three variables.
We haven't initialized. We haven't initialized or passed any values for length, breadth, and height.
Yeah,
So
you missed it. So these variables we can it's not mandatory to initialize because these are initialized, these are instance variables. Okay, so only variables which Java force us to initialize is local variable. Okay, again I'll show you, don't forget this thing. Now see, this is a local variable.
yeah, but initially, like if it tries to sys out that L into B into
Exactly.
X, it doesn't do anything, right? Because there's no value passed
Now
right
I'll
now.
show you. Yeah, exactly. So now see, what would be the result? Zero. How? The answer is constructor, default constructor. whenever you create an object, okay, JVM, whenever you write a, what is the definition of constructor? I told you it is a special method which is being called as soon as your object is created. Okay, so in this class I don't have any constructor. I don't have any constructor, and whenever I write new, JDK internally creates a default constructor, okay, and assign default values to these instance variables, which means if it is int, the default value for integer is always 0. So that's why 0 into 0 into 0 is 0. We got result 0. Okay, so when we don't have any constructor, JDK JVM define its own default constructor, which is first kind of constructor in Java, which is default constructor, and it is used to initialize the values. So if it is string, it will assign it as null. You want to see the form? Okay, let me change this to string. So you should know what is the default value of string, what is the default value of int, what is the default value of double. So just go through these things, but let me show you. Null. So like it's out of box. Who is assigning these values? Because we externally we didn't assign any value to L, right? Here we just declare the variable and we didn't assign any variable, any value. So answer of this question is default constructor. When you create an object, default JVM JDK internally call the default constructor and assign the values to these variables, instance variables. Okay, so this is a default constructor, a constructor which is being called, which is used, not default, but overall the constructor definition is which is used to initialize the variables, and which is called whenever as soon as you creates an object. Okay, when you write this new operator, JDK creates a constructor. If there is no constructor in a class, it creates a default constructor. Okay, if no constructor defined in a class, JDK creates default constructor. Okay guys, understand the concept of default constructor? If any question, do let me know. Yuan,
So
No,
great.
we're good.
you want me to explain again?
No, we're
Very
good.
good.
Got it? So a constructor is used to initialize the variables, and if you don't have any constructor in a class, JDK creates a default constructor and initialize the value. So to string it assign null, to int it assigns 0, to double it assigns some 0 0.0. So these are the values you should know. Okay, so this is the basic concept of constructor. Now there are different types of constructor. We can define our own constructor in a class. Let's define the constructor. So what is the syntax of a constructor? It should have, the constructor always have the its name is as a class name. Okay, so what is my class name? Constructor demo, right? So I will give a access modifier and then just simple. So how you define a constructor in your class? The name of your class, before that access modifier, it becomes a constructor. Okay, now you go ahead and assign some values in this constructor. Let me change it to int. Okay, so this is this is user defined constructor, and the syntax is the name of a constructor is same as name of your class. Now you should ask me a question, what is the difference between a method and a constructor? right? Because see, method is like we write like public void volume, and constructor we don't have any data return type. So this is data type, this is data type, this is return type, this is the name of a method. In this we have data type, we don't have any return type, and name of a constructor which is same as your class name. If you write something else, see, if I write this, it will give you an error. Return time for the method is missing. You understand? So if you are giving another name, then you have to make it as a method, not a constructor. So constructor always should have same name as your class.
Is all constructor have to be public?
Sorry?
Is all constructor have to be public or it can be private?
See, if you have private constructor, you cannot create an object of your class. Okay, so which means you are not allowing anyone to create an object of your class. So it's better to have a public, so that people can create your object, class objects. Okay,
Okay.
you got it right. So another thing is, this is just a without parameters constructors. Now we can have parameters also. Int l comma int b, int a comma int b comma int c. So what we'll do, we will pass the value from here itself, from caller. So what we do, we will assign the variable to a, and then whatever the value is coming from b, we will assign b, and then c. So this is again a second type of parameter where we just pass the variable while creating an object itself. So what it will do, it will call this constructor and assign values. A is what? We are passing 1, right? So A's value will be 1. Here A will become 1, D will become 2, and C will become 3. And similarly, what is L? L will become 1, B will become 2, H will become 3, and we can use these. And then we can calculate the volume, whatever we want to do. We want to play with these variables, you can very well. So there are like two types of constructor: parameters constructor and default. Three types of constructor. Default constructor, when you don't have anything in your class, JVM internally, JDK internally creates a default constructor. I showed you, right? And another is just with no parameter and with parameters. If you run this, we'll get the volume of this C. Okay. Any questions on this constructor thing? Because this is again an important thing where where the questions have been asked. So
So in that constructor, if we do not include one of the variable, if we do not initialize, so does it initialize that variable by default?
yeah, it will initialize. So let's suppose I commented this, right? H. So what would be the H value? 0, because H is 0, right? So it will give you a length into breadth into H 0. So always default constructor would be there always. And who creates that? JDK creates the default constructor. Whenever you call as soon as your object is created, okay, and then you can have your own constructors also.
And the constructor only initializes the variables, or can we have other operations within the constructor like sysout or anything else?
You can have sysout in this. There is no issue. It's kind of a method. The only difference is it's like you don't need any return type. It returns nothing. Constructor returns nothing. But in Java, in methods, you can return the values, right? So let's suppose you want to print B, run Java, it's 2. So you can write anything.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the concept of constructor.
So can we modify the default constructor?
Modify mean
Like it says 0. It says 0, right? Can we make it to 2? If if you don't initialize it is 0, right?
Okay, you can make it. You want me to do like this,
Yeah.
right? So
No, not like this. I'm asking whether the constructor, but if you don't declare it, it is 0, right? The
but
constructor
not
at a
declare. You
default
don't initialize it. If you don't initialize,
okay.
it could be 0.
So
But
that's all. If you don't initialize it, it will be 0.
you
So
want me
in
to do
order,
like
if
this?
you want to change the default value, how can you change it?
I change H to 10, right?
Yeah.
See, I write here, and then I will remove this. You want this behavior, right?
Yes.
See, so my result is 20, 10, 2. So which means it's taking. So you can define, you can initialize, you can change the value variables in constructor. Okay,
Okay.
got it?
But you're declaring what you're calling 123 here itself, right? Why is
Right.
it taking the value of h is equal to 10?
Because like I defined in this, right? So what is H? But H is like globally. We define it, it's a class variable. It's our instance variable, right? So its scope is within this class, this block, entire block. So what I did is I just initialize H. What constructor do? It will assign a value 0 first. And then in this constructor, what I did, I override the value of H and assign the value to 10. So it would be 10 to H. So now what would be the value of H now? 10, right?
Yeah.
Right. So what happened? Now we have H here. What is the value of B? Which is 2, right? And what is the value of A? 1, and 2 into 10 is 20. That's what we are getting here.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay, guys. Anything else in this tutorial? In today's section, any questions? Anything else? Because this is very important concept which I explained you. Variables very important. Heap memory, stack memory, very important, and then access.
Uh, can you just quickly tell me about the memory, how you the Java deletes the memory, dumps it into the garbage, and then that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so you define class has variables and method, right? And it has
Yeah,
object.
yeah.
So whenever, just in nutshell, you
Mm-hmm.
just remember this: that the variables, stack memory contains variable and references. Okay, stack memory
What's up?
variables
And
and references. References means when we create an object, right? So whenever we
mm-hmm.
create an object, it creates a reference to the object also. So stack contains reference to the object. Okay, and what happened to the heap memory? Heap memory contains object. So stack
Okay,
memory contains your variables and heap memory contains your objects. Okay, so as soon as your
mm-hmm.
program completes its execution, garbage JDK finds that this object or this variable is no longer used in the program. Let's clean it, because it's like memory, it's like it's being used and it's been sitting in the memory somewhere in RAM, right, unnecessarily.
Okay,
So what JDK will do, it will scan the program. It will see that object is no longer being used because it's stopped. It has its algorithm JDK. So no need to worry about that. But
mm-hmm.
JDK just check that, okay, this object is not longer being used. So let's clean it. It will go to the heap memory. It will clean this object. Okay. So,
Okay.
so this is the internally, you should not do anything. Okay. This is taken care.
So it is the temporary dislocation of the object and the
Yeah,
variable.
right. So it's kind of, you have a something in your computer, right? Disk, and you no longer is using, you already watched a video, you want to delete it. How you do, you delete it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the same mechanism is being used by JDK. So object is nothing but is some, let's suppose, an image, or some text file, right? So I am not using
Mm-hmm.
that text file, I want to delete it. So who is going to delete it? JDK has this internal mechanism which is called garbage collection. When you install JDK, it comes with the JDK. Okay, so JDK has a feature of garbage collection. So it clears that
Okay.
object and free the memory so that other objects can take it. So let's suppose I am a memory 2 GB, right? So I created all the
Mm-hmm.
objects which occupies like 1.99 GB. So I just have 100 MB of 100 MB of memory. I created an object which is like 200 memory. So which may cause memory out of memory exception, right? Because I don't have memory, I'm creating objects which are more than my available memory, which may give us this out of memory error, which may like you will see later actually if you write programs and you will see these errors happen.
Okay.
Okay, so you should avoid these
Uh,
by but like Java collectors take care of these things.
okay. My question is, so these objects and variables, they are only taken out from the main method or throughout the whole program?
Throughout the whole program.
Oh, okay, okay, got it. I thought it was only from the main.
No, it should be from whole program. Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, so anything else? I think
And
we'll.
the con
Uh-huh.
okay, one more question.
Yeah,
So the constructors are used to create an object of the class, right?
constructor
Is
used
that right?
is not, it's okay, but we used to,
No,
constructor is not used to create objects of a class. It's like we
I
use
mean
two
it's
operator. It is used to initialize the variables, and when it initialize the variable, as soon as we create an object. So these creation of object and constructors are tightly coupled. So when you create an object, constructor will get created, default constructor. So these two are tightly coupled.
okay.
So you
So
connect them with
so
the
so in a sentence we can say the constructors are used to instantiate a class and then
exactly.
right?
You can say that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we are done with the class today session. So anything else? So I
I wanted to know a little bit about the heap, how heap memory works. I think it's okay if you can cover a little bit in the next class too. I know a little bit about stack, but if you can cover the heap memory, how it works, is it
yeah.
possible?
Okay, how it works? Yeah, we can cover it actually.
Yeah, I think
Main
it's okay if you
concept is,
can do it in the next class also.
yeah, we'll
It's
do it
fine.
in next class. But the main concept it stores the object. So how it works is like internally it has perm generation, it has a permanent generation objects, it has new generation objects. So there are a lot of things internally in heap memory. Right? So we can explain it later. Yeah.
Just a, yeah, just a brief overview, and then I should be good. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. So shall we drop? Okay. So we are done with that today's session. We will upload this PPT and recording session so that people can go through. I recommend you people to just start doing these things. Create your variable, check how these are getting initialized, what is the error you will get, and constructor. So just go through these things. You will be able to understand, because if you write it, you will be able to remember it for a long time, and if you not write it, then it's like you will be getting confused, because these are there are some confusion in these variables. So it's better to write it and see what are the compilation errors you are getting when you not initialize some variables, what is static variable, and why you use, because this is very important interview question. So people asking what is static variable, tell me the real time example of where we use static variable, right? You should be able to tell this. As I told you, two examples like student name, student college, or company name. So which is common. You can quote any example. Just go through this and let me know if you have any question. You can ping me. You can ping me in separate chat also. No issues. Okay. You are in that group. Anytime any help needed, we will be able to help you. Okay, guys. Any
Okay,
question?
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a nice night. I think it's getting late there now.
Yeah, it's 11:40.
Yeah. Chalo then. Sleep well.
Okay,
Bye bye.
thank
Take
you.
care. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
Bye. Thank you.
How do we end this?